Mary has been the key force behind shaping a lot of people's initial introduction to bridge, which is such an important role, and one that's either going to make people's love of the game continue on, or they're going to turn around and never want to play it ever again. So many of the people in today's lobby, Mary would have been the first face that they saw in bridge. So not only is she a very successful teacher, being the inaugural winner of the Victorian Teacher of the Year award, but she's also a very successful player, having represented Victoria. Although recently it seems like playing's gone by the wayside a bit, just for all the teaching that she's been doing. Welcome, Mary, and over to you.
Thank you very much. Yes, I learned bridge truly a million years ago. I learned bridge in 1973 when I know some of you weren't even around. I played a lot. I played competitively. I really enjoyed my bridge. I wasn't ever a true world expert, certainly, but I was pretty competent, and I really, really enjoyed playing high-level bridge. But then in around about 2005, I started working, and I was working a lot of hours a week, so I decided that I could either play high-level bridge or work, and I chose the work because I have found it extremely fulfilling. I love helping new players, and it is probably where I am useful in the bridge world. I will never represent Australia, unlike Laura and Pete. I like interacting with new or newer players, and it's what I find satisfying overall. I think that's enough, Laura, isn't it?
Oh, that seems reasonable. Although I'd like to know, because I'd like to think that there's not too much that I don't know about you. I've worked under Mary for years now, ever since I was a child in Mary's, as Mary says. But how did it come about that you, I guess, got into teaching bridge? Because obviously you wouldn't have started playing bridge with the intention of teaching and being involved in administration and teaching. So how did that come about?
Yes, I have a friend who's a bridge player, whose name is Erica Windmiller. Some of you have probably heard of her. She was running classes in her house, arranged to have a holiday away from home, and she asked me if I would help her out while she was away and run her supervised sessions. And I would be completely hopeless. I'm really sorry, I can't help you. And she said, oh, go on. So after a while, I agreed to watch her run a session. So I went along to her house and I watched her run her class for half an hour or so. And I thought to myself, I can do that. And so it's all on Erica Windmiller's insistence that I should run supervised sessions. When I was using supervised sessions, I said to myself, okay, I can do supervised sessions. I could never, ever, ever run a class for learners. It would be so complicated. And a couple of years after I was running supervised sessions, I was asked by Keith Catt. Have you heard of Keith Catt? A wonderful chap. If I would run classes for him for learners. And I said, oh, no, I couldn't possibly. And he said, why don't you watch me and and see how it goes. So I watched him run one of his classes for beginners, and I said, "Oh, I can do that." And I've been running classes for beginners now probably for, 25 years, and I've been running supervised sessions for probably close to 30 years. So it was a very, I never thought I could, but circumstances prevailed, and it just happened, yes. And I started working in clubs. You know, it sort of creeps up on you. And, well, yes, here I am now. I've taught a lot of people, yes.
I think that sums up my experience. Just generally,
yes.
You keep trying something else, and all of a sudden you're a dog's body that can sort of do everything. One thing I know that you did, which people might have heard about these before, they might not have, is that there's bridge cruises, and I know that you had an interesting experience with a bridge cruise. So why don't you tell us about that?
Oh, look, I've only done one bridge cruise. I was sitting at home one Wednesday afternoon in my little home office, and I had a ring from John Newman in Sydney, who said to me, "What are you doing on Friday?" And I said, "Oh, I don't know, I'm working." And he said, "Would you like to run a bridge cruise on from Friday?" And this was Wednesday. I said to him, "Heavens, that's very short notice." And he said, yes, well, he had a problem. He had a lady New Zealand, and it was a cruise from New Zealand up the east coast of Australia and home to Auckland. The lady who had joined the cruise in Auckland as the teacher and the supervisors, running the bridge, when they got to Hobart, she was poured off the ship, saying, "I'll never do another one of these if the drinks aren't free." And so, in other words, I think she was sacked. And I joined the cruise in Melbourne. I took one of my friends with me, which was terrific. I went up to Port Douglas and across to Auckland. It was an enjoyable experience, and in the future, you probably should all think of joining in on some of these holidays, as they really are wonderful.
Oh, just saying it'll be great when we can get back to going on holidays, that's for sure.
Yes, and of course, I run, and Laura has run holidays in Italy, which are wonderful, great fun, and anybody who hasn't had a try of a holiday, if you want to have a heck of a lot of fun and play exactly as much bridge as you want to, when we are allowed out of the house again, have a go at some holidays. Now, I have had Alex asking me how I got started in bridge. Alex, I learned solo at my mother's knee. I would have been 5 or 6, and I was immediately hooked on solo. It just felt it was the most wonderful thing. I didn't play any bridge. My friends that I went to school with spent some years in Norway, and they learned bridge in Norway, and I was probably about 19 or 20. And I heard of them learning bridge, and I thought, oh, I think I'll learn bridge. So I went to the library and I brought home a book on how to play bridge, and I opened it and I read half the first chapter and I shut the book, and I thought, that is insane. Nobody could ever do something like that. Eventually, I went to have classes with my mother in 1973. And the moment I walked into the lesson and started to listen, I knew I'd come home. This was just exactly what I wanted to do. And yes, it's going to be 50 years in about 18 months, which is really a scary thought. It's a good game, isn't it?
A great story. I think that, your experience is similar to a lot of people. They pick up a book and they go, oh my gosh, what is this? And especially, I think, back in the day, a lot of the time when people learnt bridge, they would literally kind of be chucked at a table and given 13 cards and said, go nuts. But also bidding systems have evolved quite a bit in that time. And I think that's one thing that, you, as a teacher with a great deal of experience, you've kind of gone through the process of teaching a whole heap of different systems to beginners, and just, I guess, the general idea of going from 4-card openings to, better minor and 5-card majors, and now the evolution into 15 to 17 no trumps and potentially even on to 2/1. So why don't you tell us about your experiences of adapting there and how you find those differences with the impact on beginners?
Laura, I think you might be just having a very gentle dig at me there. Just, very gentle. I learned 4-card majors when I learned, and the moment I got out of the lessons, and when I learned a system called Goran, 4-card majors and a strong no trump, 16 to 18 no trump. I started to play ACOL, which is an English system, and I have largely played ACOL since. As a teacher, the accepted wisdom in teaching is to use a system which is universally used, and of course it is the system which is played by a large proportion of Australian players, which is 5-card majors and strong no trump, or standard American. I wouldn't try to teach a system like ACOL because it is not generally used. I think for new players must learn a system which they can play with anybody at all. And so if you learn standard at the beginning, you can always find a partner. Certainly changes have occurred over the years in some of the incidentals of the system. Look, I've got a book here at home. It's the book I learned bridge from when I learned in 1973, when I learned Goran. I recently tried to read it, and I couldn't understand it. Things have evolved over the years and are constantly evolving. I have had some spirited chats with Laura over the past 4 or 5 years about the change in opening 1 no trump from 16 to 18 to 15 to 17. And I decided eventually that the flow was heading in one direction and I would just go with the flow. I like 16 to 18 no trump because it makes some further auctions easier, but I won't actually elaborate on that because we don't have time.
So speaking of those
Yes, Laura.
spirited discussions, one of the main things that comes up in our spirited discussions is just how many points you need for game and how that's changed.
When I learned bridge, it was 26. So you used to open the bidding with 13 points, and if your partner had 13 points, then you had 26 points, and that was enough for game. It's one of the things that I seemed to immediately grasp when I was learning was how many points you needed for various things. And I remember it's sort of 48 years ago, I was playing with a young woman called Anne, and we were playing in the restricted pairs. And we had to have under 10 master points, I think. And my partner opened 2 no trumps, which showed 20 to 22. And I had 13 points. So I added my 13 points to her 20 points, and I bid 6 no trumps. And we were the only people in the room who did that.
Well done.
Knowing how many points you need for game has been, thank you. And we won the competition, and I won $10. And I think I still have the envelope in which the prize money was all these years later. It's always been reasonably natural for me to understand what 26 points means. Now, of course, it's 25. In fact, they say, they say that you can make game 55% of the time if you have 24 points between the two hands, which is fine, except that I think they've left the bit out where it helps if you're a really strong player. Certainly, a proportion of the time you will be able to make quite high-level contracts, fewer high cards than you need. It depends on other things being right in the hands. If you look for 25, you can't go far wrong.
Yeah,
I think.
Definitely.
And that's what I think. Yes.
It's amazing how much, those things of just being able to add up the points, get to the right level is so important. For those of you in the audience who have Mary's purple book or red book, page 36 is the most important page in that book. I say it time and time again, the most important page. Absolutely. What do you think is
It's the page where it says what you should do with certain numbers of points, right? I think it's on page 31 in one of the books. I'm not sure, but listening to partners say how many points she's got is a really good thing to do if you want to get to the right contract.
Absolutely. So what do you think is the best tip that you can give for newer players who are muddling their way through this great game in terms of how they can improve their game?
Couple of things, probably. The most important thing, and I know it's pretty obvious, is bridge is a partnership game. Listen to partner and remember that an auction is a conversation. We are not bidding in spite of our partner. We are exchanging information. So always listen to partners' bids and see if you can think of what information you can give your partner about your hand, which will further the conversation. If your partner has said, I don't have 4 hearts, then there's probably, generally speaking, not much reason why you should say that you've got 4 hearts. Bidding is a conversation. The second thing I would like to say is the game is not over at the end of the session. If I had $1 for every hour that I had spent on the phone hanging on to a hand record many years ago, hanging on to a hand record with one hand and my wine with the other hand, many years ago, I would be a rich woman. The game doesn't finish at the end of the session. There will always be hands where you mucked it up, where things went wrong, where you need to talk about your system. Try to make an arrangement with your partner that when you go home or after the game in the club rooms, with your hand record, ring your partner, have your coffee in your other hand, and sit and look through the hands. If you only think about bridge while you're actually holding the cards, then you're missing out on a lot. I think they're the most basic things that I can think of.
Yeah, I think you raised such important points, especially in terms of that the game doesn't stop after you finish. I think that's actually been a really common theme with all our celebrity speakers that we had. We had Mike the other day talking about how in South Australia it's so common for everybody to go to the pub after the game, but it'd be nice if there was a nice cafe or a pub or something that you could head to and discuss hands. And talking about them and assessing your game really does provide the foundation to improve.
That's true because, you mightn't have realised this, folks, but bridge is complicated. And there are so many little things that can happen. Your hand isn't exactly the same as the hand you had when you last opened one club. You need to have the experience of exchanging information with partner so that you'll be able to give the shades of meaning about your hand. Certainly, if bridge was an easy game to learn, we wouldn't bother. If it was like gin rummy, we'd say after half an hour, oh, I can do that now. And Absolutely. You wouldn't bother.
Because everyone's about to go to their table. Have a great game and enjoy, everybody.
Okay. Bye.